There have been a lot of difficult events in the world this year: a global pandemic, shelter in place, social unrest, widespread protests and riots, and West Coast wildfires. On top of that, we have a contentious U.S. election on the horizon. Everyone is asking the question about how companies should engage in broader societal issues during these difficult times, while keeping their teams united and focused on the mission. I decided to share publicly how I'm addressing this in case it helps others navigate a path through these challenging times. In short, I want Coinbase to be laser-focused on achieving its mission, because I believe that this is the way that we can have the biggest impact on the world. We will do this by playing as a championship team, focus on building, and being transparent about what our mission is and isn't. That is from Brian Armstrong, the co-founder and CEO of Coinbase, from a blog post that he put up in September 2020. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Hi, this is Eric Anderton. Welcome to Construction Genius. And you may be asking why I'm reading a blog post from the CEO of Coinbase. Let me first tell you a little bit about what Coinbase is all about. It's a company established in 2012, and this is from their website. Coinbase had the radical idea that anyone, anywhere, should be able to easily and securely access Bitcoin. We see cryptocurrency as the future of money and a catalyst for creating an open financial system around the world. Today, more than 35 million people in over 100 countries trust Coinbase to buy, sell, store, use, and earn cryptocurrency. Don't worry, this podcast has nothing to do with the details of cryptocurrency, which you may or may not understand. Rather, it has to do with how Brian Armstrong is addressing the question, how should companies engage in broader societal issues while keeping their teams united and focused on the mission? So throughout this episode of Construction Genius, I'm going to be quoting quite extensively from Brian's blog post, because I would like you to consider how your company is engaging in broader societal issues and how you can stay united and focused on the mission of your organization. And I think this is critically important for construction organizations. And this particular podcast will be particularly useful for you if you're experiencing some challenges as far as that is concerned. There's going to be three things we'll talk about today in the episode. Number one is the vital foundation. Secondly is the singular focus. And then finally, the glorious freedom. The vital foundation, the singular focus, and the glorious freedom. And by way of introduction, we're going to take a look at what is the purpose of a business. And I think it's very important before we dive into it. I'm just going to give you another quote here from the Coinbase blog post. It says here, "We're committed to making Coinbase a place that creates incredible job opportunities and a welcoming environment for people of every age, race, gender, sexual orientation, etc." So I want you to keep this in mind as we go through this particular episode. And like I said, I'd like to begin with an introduction, asking the question, what is the purpose of a business? And I think it's vital because when you understand the purpose of a business, it'll give you some clarity on how you should be engaging with the broader society. Because obviously your business is a part of the broader society and also, to one extent or another, has an impact upon the broader society. And as a business, you have people involved in your organization that come from a variety of different backgrounds. And as they come together to be involved in your organization, they bring their backgrounds with them to the table and to the daily operations that you're involved in. So what is the purpose of a business? Milton Friedman said very well that the purpose of a business is to maximize profits for the owners or shareholders. And the reason you want to ask what the purpose of a business is so that you can focus on fulfilling that purpose. Peter Drucker said the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. So I'd like to combine those two definitions from Milton Friedman and Peter Drucker and add a little bit of a spin myself. The purpose of a business is to maximize profits by creating and keeping customers while benefiting its employees, their families, and the communities in which it operates. If you're listening to this podcast, I know that you believe that business is good. And that is a firm conviction that I have. Businesses that are run legitimately provide a tremendous benefit to the customers that they serve, to the employees that work for them, to the communities in which they operate. Business is good. And the very fact that you are making a profit, that you are employing people, that you are providing a service or a product, that should be sufficient in itself to fulfill the purpose of a business. And you should feel good about that. And with that in mind, let's talk about what are the responsibilities of a business as it is engaging in that purpose of maximizing profits and creating and keeping customers and benefiting its employees and their families and the communities in which it operates. With regards to your customers, the responsibilities that you have are very straightforward. Number one, you must solve their problems. No one is ever going to give you money unless you are solving their problems or adding value to them. So your responsibility is to solve problems and add value. So think about this for a moment. Are you solving problems and are you adding value? If you're doing that for your customers, you are fulfilling your responsibilities as a business. Not only do you have responsibilities to your customers, you have responsibilities to your employees to provide them a fair wage and to provide them a good place to work, to provide them a place where they can thrive and they can make a contribution. You have a responsibility to the industry that you work in, to advocate for its furtherance. Obviously, that's a responsibility of your organization. You have a responsibility to society, to live within the rules and the regulations of the place where you have chosen to do business. This includes things like adhering to the regulations, paying taxes. If you think about doing business in a place like California, I was just chatting with one of my clients today. He was bemoaning some of the regulations and rules that come down from the state. And in construction, it's pretty tough to, sort of pick up your business and go somewhere else. It's a very physical type of business. Of course, you can expand to different geographies, but if you pick a geography to work in, then you must submit yourself, for lack of a better word, to the rules and regulations of that geography. So keeping in mind the responsibilities that you have to society, to your employees, to your customers, should you have other responsibilities on a broader basis? Well, the answer to that question is yes and no. In other words, you can choose to take on a broader responsibility, but you don't necessarily have to, and neither should you feel compelled to take on a broader role in your society other than the responsibilities that you have as a business. And so with that in mind, I'd like to move on to the first thing that I want to cover in today's discussion, and that is the vital foundation of a business. And it's so very important that you build your business upon this vital foundation. And so let me begin by looking into that. First, what you have to do is you must establish a compelling mission. If you're solving problems, that's something which is difficult and challenging. Coinbase, for instance, has set themselves a very big problem to solve. And that's creating an open financial system for the world. Now, again, you don't have to know anything about cryptocurrency to be impressed by that mission, creating an open financial system for the world. Yours may be less ambitious, may be narrower in scope, but it should be no less clear. And when you establish a compelling mission, that can be something for you to focus on and to find great meaning and fulfillment in. And not only do you need to establish a compelling mission as part of that vital foundation, you must also insist on a unique culture. And I'm going to be coming back to this as I go through the podcast here today. But one of the things I love about business, I know I've mentioned it before in other episodes is that business can be whatever you want it to be. Business is a wonderful opportunity for you to express yourself and for the leadership of the organization to express themselves, to take on unique challenges, to seize unique opportunities, to bring themselves fully to the table and solve problems and add value in a way that perhaps nobody else ever could. And so let's look at what Coinbase has focused on in terms of establishing a unique culture. And this is from the blog post that the CEO published. And by the way, I'm going to be putting links in the show notes to 3 particular posts that Coinbase has put up recently, just so that you can follow along with those. So their culture is all about this: top talent in every seat, play as a championship team, be candid and kind, focus on the customer, foster repeatable innovation, act like an owner. And again, you don't need to know anything about cryptocurrency to be able to look at that culture and think, how might I be able to be inspired by the culture that they're committed to in terms of establishing my own unique culture? See, culture is not something that is only limited to one particular type of business or one particular service or offering. Culture is something that's an expression of people, and people are able to operate in all types of different businesses. So it's very interesting to look at the cultures of different companies, particularly from different industries, and think about what you can learn about that in terms of your construction company. And I'd like to take a look at one particular example of their culture, and that is play as a championship team. And so I'm going to be quoting here from their the blog post that I'm linking to in the show notes. So this is from Coinbase. Be company first. We act as one Coinbase, putting the company's goals ahead of any particular team or individual goals. Now, this is a big deal in construction. Think about it for your organization at the moment. Think about how you have multiple teams in your organization, or multiple divisions, or multiple parts of your company that all have to come together to pursue the overall goal of a healthy, profitable, vibrant organization. So for instance, you have estimating versus project management many times in your organization, and that can create conflict. Field versus the office. One project versus another project. I was chatting again to one of my clients today, and he's a general superintendent, and he was talking about how his superintendents have to negotiate with each other around their field resources because perhaps there's one particularly high-performing foreman that they want to be able to use on a project, but one superintendent wants to be able to use that same foreman on another project. And so they have to negotiate with themselves within the field organization just in terms of which resources will be put towards which projects. So again, you have estimating versus project management, field versus the office, project versus project, everyone versus billing and HR. And so being company first is something that you can take in your organization and think about, how am I establishing that culture and pursuing that culture in view of fulfilling the purpose of my business, which is making a profit, which is making a contribution in the society that I'm engaged in. Here's another quote from Coinbase. Default to trust. We assume positive intent amongst our teammates and assume ignorance over malice. We have each other's back. This is all about playing as a championship team. Think about how many misunderstandings may come up in your construction company every single day as you're dealing with the hurly-burly of building projects profitably. Okay? You must insist on assuming positive intent amongst the teammates. This is something that comes from you as the leader of the organization. I'm speaking specifically to CEOs and presidents of construction companies here today. Of course, this can apply to team leaders, but really, you must get that ingrained in your organization. We are going to believe the best about one another. And we are going to assume ignorance over malice. Perhaps someone didn't know what you were working on when they made their decision, which impacted you in a negative way. Assume that first, rather than assuming that this person is being malicious towards you. And what is an assumption? An assumption is being unwilling to do the hard work necessary to find out the truth. And when a situation occurs in your organization that perhaps creates conflict or difficulty or pain, You must do the hard work necessary to find out the truth in order to keep your company from becoming a place of internal strife and conflict. Let me give you another quote from the Coinbase blog post. Focus on what unites us, not what divides us. This is all about playing as a championship team, okay? And this is what they say here. We help create a sense of cohesion and unity by focusing on what we have in common, not where we disagree, especially when it's unrelated to our work. Now, this is fundamental to the success of your organization. You know how important cohesion and unity is to the execution of construction projects. And so you must focus on what you have in common, and that is why it's so important for you to establish a strong culture in your organization. Because that culture is something that every single person in your company shares in common, the commitment to that culture. And based on that culture, you can find much to agree on, and you can avoid the petty disagreements or the unnecessary disagreements that come into an organization that have absolutely nothing to do with your work. And this requires a massive conscious effort on the part of leadership. And I'm going to be getting to this later in the podcast when I talk about your next steps. But it's all about you clarifying what your culture is and then communicating it again and again and again, both in word and in deed. Let me give you another quote here from Coinbase. Act in service of a greater mission. We have united as a team to try and accomplish something that none of us could have done on our own. Most of the folks listening to this podcast are commercial contractors. There is no way that you, as the CEO of a commercial contracting company, can execute a project by yourself. Whether you're a general contractor or a subcontractor, you need a team. And you are uniting on a daily basis to do something which is incredibly difficult, incredibly risky, and very challenging. And that is building construction projects profitably and doing so safely and doing it on time and on budget. It's something very difficult, and it's something that everyone has to unite around. Let me give you another quote from the Coinbase blog post. Sustained high performance. As compared to a family where everyone is included regardless of performance, a championship team makes a concerted effort to raise the bar on talent, including changing out team members when needed. This is fundamental. Think about your organization at the moment. Which of your team members may need to be changed out in the next 30, 60, or 90 days? Not because they're necessarily bad people, but because they're not a fit for your team, or they're not performing at the highest possible level, or they're not contributing to what you would consider to be a championship team. You don't really have room in your organization for bench warmers. You must make a commitment if you want to perform at the highest possible level. And I would venture to say, fulfill your purpose as a business to making sure that you're fielding that championship team on a consistent basis. So all of this really begs the question, what do people want from work? What do your employees really want? Well, of course, they want money, because that's what work is all about. It's all about making money. They want to make a contribution. They want to win. Think about your superintendents and your foremen. Think about your project managers. Let me say this, winning is better than losing. It sucks to have a project that is losing money, where there's conflict and there's difficulties and there's challenges and there's no way out, and you just have to close out the job and move on to the next one. People want to win. They want to come and work in an organization where stuff is getting done right, stuff is getting done successfully, that there is a real sense of recognition over the things that are going on. They want to win. They want to make progress on something that's important. They perhaps don't want to do just the same things over and over again, but they want to be able to do the same things better or differently. And they want to be able to step over the line, so to speak, and focus on something other than politics, personal strife, divisions, and difficulties. You know, a lot of people come to your work, and you know what they're able to do? They're able to take a break from some of the challenges they have in their lives. It's like an athlete. You read this many times or hear it many times when an athlete is going through personal problems, and they step over the white line, so to speak, and they get to play the game. And while they're playing the game, they forget their personal problems and really focus on performing at the highest possible level. Think about how your company can be that place of escape from people, the escape from the difficulties and challenges that they face, and the opportunity for them to bring perhaps their very best self to the table to perform at the highest possible level. And that's really the key. It's a place to give your best effort to the mission at hand. And we're not necessarily brushing off the other stuff or putting it under the rug or ignoring larger societal issues as individuals, but as a company, we're committed to a mission that is not necessarily a part of those larger societal issues. Again, think about it in terms of sports teams. You can think of many sports teams where you have people from different backgrounds, different religions, different orientations, different social economic statuses. They come together and only one thing matters, and that is the mission of winning. And that's the kind of culture you should be creating in your organization. This does not mean that the ends justify the means. It doesn't mean you can do business however you want in order just to make money or to build a profitable project. And it doesn't mean winning at all costs. You step within the lines of a business and you commit to playing the game according to the rules, right? We don't say, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. That's not what we're talking about here, right? It doesn't mean that you can make unethical decisions. But what it does mean is that we bring our A game all of the time. We bring our entire selves to the game. We sacrifice for the sake of the organization and for the sake of others. But this means that we don't have to compromise. Okay? Now, this is really important. If you're compromising your culture in any way in order to either hang on to people or because you're afraid that if you step up to your true self as a company, it's going to alienate people, you really need to stop that. And this is one of the things we'll see later on again with Coinbase. You can't be afraid to make a strong stand for the right culture in your company, even if it repels certain people from your organization. You should be committed to attracting the right people and repelling the wrong people for your business and for your culture. You should always be striving to improve, focusing on the mission, and welcoming all people who want to commit to your culture and commit to high performance. That is the vital foundation right there. The mission and the culture is all about that vital foundation. Now let's talk about the singular focus. And this is, again, vital. Time is limited, right? Think about the endless numbered days that we have. Right? It seems like at times life goes on forever, but then life just goes by so quickly. Time is limited. Resources are limited. You have a limited amount of time, money, and attention. And so therefore you must have a singular focus in your company on how are you solving problems, how are you adding value, how are you retaining customers, how are you driving profitability. This is the purpose of your organization. And think about this. What is the biggest impact you can make as a construction company? It's by building killer projects. Projects that make money, projects that benefit your customers, projects where people can thrive. So you should always be thinking about, in your construction company, have a singular focus on how can you improve bidding? How can you improve planning, building? How can you improve the billing aspects of your work? How can you improve that fundamental blocking and tackling that you need to do on an everyday basis in order to do something that's extremely difficult, and that is run a successful construction company? How can you improve your processes? How can you improve your people? How can you improve the services that you have to offer? This should be your singular focus. And what should you not be focusing on? Well, I'm going to make some suggestions here by going back to the Coinbase blog post. And again, I'm going to be quoting here. Policy decisions. This is very interesting. If there is a bill introduced around crypto, that is around cryptocurrency, which Coinbase focuses on, going back to quoting here, we may engage here, but we normally wouldn't engage in policy decisions around healthcare or education, for example. And this is all about this idea of the focus of the organization, okay? They're not going to engage in policy decisions that don't have to do with this idea of fulfilling their mission. So for instance, in a construction company, this might apply that you focus on policy decisions and on outside issues that are related to construction, but you may not necessarily focus on other things simply because it is not a part of your mission. Going back to quoting from Coinbase. Nonprofit work. We will do some work here with our Pledge 1% program and givecrypto.org, but this is about 1% of our efforts. We are a for-profit business. When we make profit, we can use that to hire more great people and build even more. We shouldn't ever shy away from making profit because with more resources, we can have a greater impact on the world. So how does this apply in your organization? Perhaps if you want to do nonprofit work, you should establish a separate entity to focus upon that. Because the main focus of your business should be making money in an ethical way. Profit should be the focus of your business. Because if you have profit, you can sustain your business and you can improve your business and you can continue to benefit those who work for you and society as a whole. It's by making money that businesses benefit society. Going back to the Coinbase post, broader societal issues. We don't engage here when issues are unrelated to our core mission because we believe impact only comes with focus. How focused are people in your organization on your singular mission as a construction company? Let's go back to the Coinbase post. Political causes. This is vital, particularly in the environment that we're living in here at the moment in the US and other places in 2020 when I'm recording this podcast. Quoting again from Coinbase, we don't advocate for any particular causes or candidates internally that are unrelated to our mission because it is a distraction from our mission. Even if we all agree something is a problem, we may not all agree on the solution. Everything does not have to be about politics, and you really need to keep that aspect of it out of your business. It's like sports teams, right? I love the Niners, my buddies love the Steelers and the Broncos, and we can argue all day about who's better, right? Now, that's a relatively minor thing in terms of sports, but political things can be extremely consequential and impactful upon people, and yet a distraction when it comes to what they should be doing at work. So I encourage you as a construction company, don't advocate for particular causes or candidates internally that are unrelated to your mission. It's not healthy. It will cause unnecessary division. It will cause some people to want to shut up. It will cause other people to speak up. It may cause you to favor some people over others. And as you as a construction leader, you should not be favoring people based on any external things such as their race or their gender or anything like that, nor should you be favoring people based on their political affiliations. You should be favoring people who are committed to your culture, who are committed to the mission, and who are committed to bringing their A game to your organization on a daily basis. Okay, so we've talked about the vital foundation. We've focused on the singular focus. And finally, we want to talk about the glorious freedom. It's one of the things I love about business. It gives you a glorious freedom. And so I'm going to quote again from the Coinbase blog post. It has become common for Silicon Valley companies to engage in a wide variety of social activism, even those unrelated to what the company does. And there are certainly employees who really want this in the company they work for. So why have we decided to take a different approach? The reason is that while I think these efforts are well-intentioned, they have the potential to destroy a lot of value at most companies, both by being a distraction and by creating internal division. My opinion is that the best companies are not focused on social activism. That does not mean that social activism doesn't have its place, but that place is not in the workplace. And why is that? It's because I agree with what the Coinbase CEO is saying here. When you're doing that, you may have good intentions, but you can destroy a lot of value by being a distraction and by creating internal division. And the glorious freedom is this: you don't have to do what every single organization is doing. You can do what you want to do. You are free to pursue a singular mission because that is what businesses should be doing. You are free for your business to be anything you want it to be within the rules of business. That includes the rules laid down by the governments that you work within. So if you're in California, that means something different than if you're in Utah, Texas, the United Kingdom, Australia. And that also includes your own personal moral codes. You don't have to imitate the crowds. And I'll tell you what I mean by this. You know, when the COVID thing hit, Obviously, it's a big deal. Obviously, it has a tremendous impact upon people's lives. But then you see all these commercials. And you'll forgive me for being cynical, but when I see Coca-Cola saying we're all in this together, shoot me in the head. I'm sick of it. When I see Verizon giving me a discount on my cell phone bill, I'm like, thanks Verizon for the discount. But really, it's not costing you much because I'm sitting in my house not using your mobile services, using my Wi-Fi. And it seems like virtue signaling to me. And it's a little bit off-putting. And I want to say this. Obviously, you should be concerned about greater societal issues, but you should not allow those societal issues to keep you from focusing 100% upon your mission. You do not have to be terrorized by the noisy minority, by what people are doing on Twitter or on LinkedIn or wherever it might be. You don't have to feel compelled necessarily to post something on your social media feeds that comment on the societal issues that we're going through. If you choose to do that, fair enough. But understand that if you do that, you are making a statement which may cause internal division within your organization and distract you from the more important mission as far as a business is concerned, which is driving profitability. Because if you're driving profitability, then you're having a tremendous impact upon the society that you're operating within. Now, as we're going through this, you may come up with some objections or some thoughts. Perhaps you want to be involved in stuff outside of your main mission. And if you do, you are free to do so. But you must realize it will cost you time, money, and it could cost you talent. It could affect the organization's morale. You have to understand that not everyone in your organization has the same opinions as everyone else in terms of politics or things like that. Another thing you might be thinking is you're afraid to take a stand like a company like Coinbase is doing. And I encourage you to read the whole blog post because they are taking a very clear stand, which is obviously thought out and which is not being received well by everyone. And what will people think if you take a stand that is contrary to what you see in the broader society as a whole? And I want to say this, it's not about being a jerk. It's all about working within the rules of your jurisdiction. It's not about discriminating against anybody. But you must not be afraid to repel and attract people by being committed to a particular mission and by refusing to take on things that are outside of your bailiwick, so to speak, outside of that core focus or mission of your company. Be willing to pay that cost and be willing to keep focused on the mission. So let's go back to the Coinbase post real quick. Quoting again, "These are difficult times and every CEO I know is trying to figure out how to lead through it. I recognize that our approach is not for everyone and may be controversial. I know that many people may not agree and some employees may resign. I also know that some of what I've written above will be misinterpreted, whether accidentally or on purpose. But I believe it's the right approach for Coinbase that will set us up for success long term. And I would rather be honest and transparent about that than equivocate and work in a company that is not aligned. We need to do a better job of being authentic about who we are, and hopefully this blog post is a first step in that direction. We are an intense culture, and we are an apolitical culture. We are also committed to making Coinbase a place that creates incredible job opportunities and a welcoming environment for people of every age, race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. With a strong, united culture, we can build a company that changes the world. At Coinbase, that culture means staying focused on our mission and being the best company we can be. I believe this is how we will have the greatest impact. With this clarity, hopefully everyone can make an informed decision and we can move forward as one Coinbase. Powerful stuff. So let's think about some next steps for you as a construction company executive. Number one, clarify the mission of your company. Number two, be brave and communicate that mission and culture verbally and in writing and by the way that you behave. Don't assume that it's clear to someone once you've communicated it once. Don't assume that once is enough. And make sure that you're telling people what that culture and that mission looks like in real life. Tie it to the decisions that they're making on a daily basis. And with that in mind, commit to do's and don'ts. Let me quote again from the Coinbase post. We won't debate causes or political candidates internally that are unrelated to work. We won't expect the company to represent our personal beliefs externally. We won't assume negative intent or not have each other's back. We won't take on activism outside of our core mission at work. We will fight to get on the same page when we have differences. We will support each other and create team cohesion. We will assume positive intent. We will put the company goals ahead of our teams or individual goals. I hope you find that helpful in terms of next steps. That's really interesting. You can tell by this, some of the stuff that I read from the blog post that the Coinbase CEO was anticipating some people leaving as a result of the stand that he was making. And that, in fact, is the case. And he offered generous exit packets to those who were not in alignment with this core mission and vision that he was sharing. 5% of his employees accepted it. Okay? They accepted that. It's interesting here. I want to quote from another post that he recently put up. And he says here, I've heard a concern from some of you that this clarification about the core mission and those kinds of things would disproportionately impact our underrepresented minority population at Coinbase. It was reassuring to see that people from underrepresented groups at Coinbase have not taken the exit package in numbers disproportionate to the overall population. We'll continue to keep a close eye on this to ensure we are building a diverse, inclusive environment where everyone feels they belong. My name is Eric Anderton. I appreciate you listening to this episode of Construction Genius. I hope you found it helpful. I would appreciate it if you could please share this episode with other construction leaders because I think it's fundamental to the operation of a healthy construction company that is fulfilling its mission in the broader society it operates within. Feel free to give us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. A 5-star review would be awesome if you think we've earned it. A written review would also be very helpful as well. If you have any questions about the content, feel free to contact me directly on my website or on LinkedIn. That's where I spend a lot of time. You can also find me on Twitter. Just search for Construction Genius. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a terrific day. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership.